The views and opinions expressed on the Kramer Show are not necessarily the opinions and views of Magic Broadcasting, its affiliates, or advertisers. Now that we covered our ass, let's unleash the gorilla. The phone is open now at 850-233-9988. This is the Kramer Show, and it's on NewsTalk at 101.
It is 7:06. Today is November the 15th, and it is just freezing outside. People are going to die because it's gotten below 60 degrees. Ladies and gentlemen, we've had him on a couple of times now, and he brings it. It's a jam-packed with useful information hour, that's for sure, when Scott Major from Major Paruas Law Firm is on the phone, and of course, the Storm Help team. Scott, good morning to you, my friend. How are you?
Great. How you doing, pal?
Doing really, really well. Here we are, a little over a month from Hurricane Michael, which, by the way, I read yesterday where some of the meteorologists are looking at this, and they're possibly going to upgrade this to have been a Category 5 storm. Just with the destruction that's on the ground here is just unbelievable. So, and I think, judging from lots of conversations that I've had on the phone, many people are having issues with their insurance companies, and and that's one thing that you do. That's one thing that you talk about often, how to get more out of the insurance companies.
No doubt about it, and thanks again for having me. The important thing that people are facing now is how to effectively and aggressively make a insurance claim, and you just have to realize that staying positive and making sure that you get all the documentation to the insurance company is critical. You need to call and write them on a regular basis, and don't think that because there's some sort of big insurance company that you need to wait on them. Everybody here is really in need of money, and you all deserve that money, especially if you have the complete and total insurance that many of you have.
Yeah, don't be, that's one word you use often to say to people, be aggressive. And you're not saying be angry or be out of control. You're just saying be aggressive. And I love that, Dwight and I, we just said, he goes, hey, Scott Major is on line 1, hugs and kisses you. You even say that during your presentation. You say, be nice, but be aggressive.
And that's exactly right. And, I think that writing the insurance company is one of the most effective tools, because sometimes, even though oftentimes phone calls are recorded, you get a lot more response when you write somebody and say, here's all my information, or here's everything I've given you as you requested. Please pay me within 2 days, or respond in writing and explain why. Love and kisses you. The concept is being aggressive just means fighting for what you deserve and being aggressive about that, not necessarily name calling. And I'll tell you that you'd be surprised whether you're having a lawyer help you or a public adjuster, or you're doing it on your own. When you write letters with deadlines, it's important. And for those of you out there, make sure that every time you write a letter, you put a deadline. Please respond to me in writing within 2 days. Please respond to me or call me within 3 days. And if they don't, then if you gave them 2 days and on day 3 they haven't answered, you write them and say, I wrote you on November 15th. I told you to respond on November 17th. We're now at November 18th. Why haven't you responded? Please write to me. This is my second or third request. I don't understand why it is you're not responding to me. And what it does is it creates pressure on that desk level adjuster, the person who's responding, to respond. And if they don't, it appears as though they're being unreasonable. And that's one of the standards in Florida for fair insurance practices.
Now, I'm curious, when you say that, what you just said, lawfully speaking, that I guess in terms of the law, that would help you eventually if you had to be, to represent someone, that they can say, okay, well, here's the letter that he wrote you. He asked for you to respond in 2 or 3 days. You didn't respond, then he responded again and asked you to respond in 2 or 3 more days. So is it easier for you to then have that on a piece of paper to know that that was sent?
Sure. There are 2 good reasons why your listeners want to do this. The first reason is in Florida, we have a statute, Chapter 624, and specifically 624.155, that says that an insurance company has a duty to do a quick and prompt investigation and to pay you when it's reasonable to do so. If they fail to do that, if they delay in any way, if they engage in unfair business practices, you can file a complaint with the state of Florida. And those you could do on your own or with your lawyer. But if you have these documentation and you show the reviewer that, hey, listen, I've been writing these people 3, 4, 5, 6 times and they're not responding, it's a lot stronger argument. The second part is that a lawyer who's representing you can also write subsequent demands to insurance companies and say, my client has done the following things. We don't understand why you're not responding. You need to act in good faith. And in Florida, we have something called, bad faith, which is if a company acts improperly, delays unreasonably, they can be considered to be acting in bad faith. And if they wrongfully fail to pay, you can get additional damages, up to triple the amount of damages against the insurance company. So documenting is very helpful, and most of the time it gets responses.
See, I think that is extremely helpful information for people to know. Extremely. Talking to Scott Major from the Major Paruas law firm and the Storm Help team. He is taking phone calls. So if you want to talk to an absolute pro live on the air, 850-233-9988. 850-233-9988. That's a huge thing to put under your cap. I think, look, people deserve the money. And if you pay your insurance and you pay the premium, then I think it's also important to state this too, just from what I'm learning. It's not reasonable for you to go, well, the insurance company has a lot of business right now. A lot of people are, they're busy, so they're not able to get back to me. Crap. That's crap. If you were late on your payment, what happens? You can't say, hey, I was busy. We don't have that luxury.
You're absolutely right. And I'll tell you that, once you understand that, it's your property, you bought an insurance policy, you've paid a lot of money. Some people have paid for years or decades on an insurance policy and never made a claim. You're entitled to be paid promptly. And if they're not paying you promptly, for the listeners out there who haven't been paid after 3 or 4 weeks, that's just insane unless you haven't given them the proper information. If you've given them the photographs and you filled out the information they requested and you've written a letter saying, if there's anything that I haven't given you, please write me and tell me within 2 days, and they're not telling you the information, then you have a right to get that money. And I, as a insured, would not want to wait a day longer. And that's why it's so important to either retain a lawyer or somebody else who can help you, because we just want you to get paid. The faster you can get paid, the faster you can get back with your life. And the insurance company wants, to delay, and they're not going to pay until you demonstrate your loss. Now, even good insurance companies that are nice and trying to help you, yes, they may be busy or whatever, but that's not an exception. That's not a excuse for not paying you timely. And I'll tell you that if you are, as we use the word aggressive, if you are persistent, the squeaky wheel will get the oil. You will be successful. And it's just so important. And you and I have talked about this, and you've shared this a lot with your listeners, how important it is to take, some strength in knowing you have rights. And if the insurance company doesn't treat you properly, there are severe penalties to them. It's just that a lot of people don't understand that. They figure, well, I've just got to wait for this big insurance machine. I can't do anything else. I don't have any choices. And meanwhile, every day you're without AC or without power or without a roof, and that's just crazy.
Let me go to John in Lynn Haven. You're on with Scott Major from the Major Paruas law firm. Go ahead, John.
Can you hear me?
We can.
I have a unique situation myself. I live in an old house. It's 106 years old, one of the first houses in Lynn Haven. And my dad bought it in 1955, and I was born in 57. So I inherited the house in 1993 when my father passed away. And I've never been able to insure the house because of the fuse panels or old screw-in fuses, and the wiring was not up to code. But it's been a comfortable home for me and my family, but I've owned it since '93. But anyway, there was 2 trees that landed on my house as a result of the hurricane, and they were alongside the right-of-way of the road. I live on the corner, and the city of Lynn Haven refused to take those trees out on 2 separate occasions when I specifically asked them to, while they were there with the crane truck taking out some other trees that had been hit by lightning. And they said that they were tree-friendly community and they were trying to protect the hardwoods, and they would rather not take the trees out. But they did trim limbs off of both trees that were infringing on my roof, the branches scraping my shingles, and one's an oak tree and one's a pine tree, and the oak tree was leaning pretty bad towards my house and the utility lines, and I asked them to take them out on 2 separate occasions, and they trimmed the limbs instead and said, no, we'll keep the trees. I know they kind of say it was an act of God, but I specifically asked them to take them out on 2 separate occasions. Do I have a dog in the fight at all?
A lot depends. Thank you for your call. And there are people that are suffering from damage by trees, and if there is no insurance, a lot of it has to do with your local requirements, your city ordinances that talk about the way in which property needs to be maintained. Generally speaking, a city should assist you with cleaning up damages of this sort. But I'd have to check the Lynn Haven specific guidelines, but as a practical matter, they're supposed to cooperate and help you. The problem is that most of these types of claims are really geared to insurance, and unfortunately, perhaps with the way in which your home was built, it sounds like you've had a challenge with getting insurance, which usually would cover this kind of tree or / debris removal. And so it's a hard case to make that the city has to come and fix your house, but you should check your local regulations. And if you call me later, I'll look it up for you and give you some intel offline that may be helpful for you in getting that resolved and perhaps negotiating with the city by using some techniques that I could tell you offline.
Yes, sir. But the problem is that my house is not fixable. It is totaled. It is everything's messed up. The foundation, the walls, the roof. It's not feasible to fix it. It's not worth fixing for the cost it would take. You could build a new one for what it would take to fix it. The mold has already taken over. It's a 2-story house.
Okay.
And the mold has taken over the upper story. I'm living in a camper on the property.
Have you contacted FEMA? Because you do get temporary housing money. You get up to $33,000 to repair.
Yes, yes, sir. But that won't help me with a house situation.
It won't rebuild your house. It will allow you to rent, a unit, temporary housing unit, as opposed
no, sir, it's not rebuildable. It's totaled.
No, I understand that, but what FEMA does is provide you with just temporary housing, and it'll reprise you. I don't know whether your house is fixable or not, but regardless, FEMA's to come in when you don't have insurance, and it does allow you some replacement type items up to $33,000. It may not be enough to completely fix your house, but if you combine that FEMA relief with an SBA loan, then you can repair your house, with a very low-cost loan if you don't have the other financial assistance. But you should certainly at least contact FEMA to at least pay for some better temporary housing for you, and to maybe, do some repairs, get rid of some mold, do some things that will at least allow some portion of the house to be livable.
Very practical, very smart answer. Scott Major from Major Paruas Law Firm and the Storm Help team. More phone calls coming up with him. Get on the air, 850-233-9988.
The Kramer Show. Unfortunately, we'll be right back. This is NewsTalk at 101. Diversifying America one show at a time. This is the Kramer Show on NewsTalk at 101.
723. If you need to get in touch with Scott Major from Major Paruas Law Firm, I want you to remember this number. Write it down. Put it in your phone, under your contacts. 800-844-LAWS. Okay? 800-844-LAWS. Glad to have Scott Major on the phone from Major Paruas Law Firm. I think that was a very practical answer to the last gentleman's question. I think, in his particular instance, I don't know what it's like from the law side, but FEMA can, maybe step in, and then after you get a grant, maybe you can apply for that SBA loan. I know that millions of dollars have been loaned from SBA for that purpose. So not for everybody, but for some, absolutely.
Yeah, the SBA loan can be a really great tool because it allows you to supplement your, existing financial needs and helps you to rebuild. And you do it right on the FEMA site, so it allows you to expeditiously do that while you're making your FEMA request. So even if you don't qualify for FEMA, you still can qualify for the SBA loan. And it's great to either substitute or complement money that you might already have from insurance. And if you have any questions about that, obviously you can call the 844-800-LAWS number, and we can give you some more intel on that. But it's a great tool for business owners, individuals, anybody who needs additional funds.
Two, we're hearing that, there are also, not only are sometimes the insurance companies dragging their feet on getting back with people, which is extremely frustrating. There's also the instant of them coming in, taking a couple of pictures, scramming, and then writing you a letter and saying, hey, we'll give you $3,000. Meanwhile, the homeowner has $50,000. I mean, I've heard those. I have heard so many of those stories, and it's infuriating to a degree.
Kramer, it's a great point that you make, and I think that's really something we should talk about. So many people get offered or paid like this stipend. I know you got $20,000 of damage, but here's $4,000. Or I know you got $20,000 of damage, here's $8,000. Your listeners need to understand you are entitled to every single dollar paid now. Not paid in some artificial, I'll get to you when I can, not we're very busy, we'll get back to you, but now. And every day that they don't pay you, you need to let them know in writing. And I'll tell you, whether you do it or we do it, that is the way to get your recovery. It's important for you all in this difficult time, when it's upsetting and frustrating and you don't need the stress, to say to yourself, the one thing that's going to give me peace is to get my proceeds so that I can rebuild my home, fix my home, repair my home, or get the funds that I need to live at another place until my home is completed. And that is important. And I think you raise a very good point, because I've seen in the tens of thousands or hundreds of thousands of claims I've seen, it is a common practice to pay this artificial first part of the claim. If you have a great estimate from a licensed or approved general contractor or roofer or whoever's done that, and you filled out the paperwork and given them the pictures, and it's a $20,000 estimate, by golly, you should be paid that $20,000.
Yeah, and it's not something where you want to, embellish. You don't want to say, hey, I had $10,000 worth of damage and I got this great insurance policy and now I'm going to scam them out of $20,000. No, it's not about that. And it's also not about you saying, hey, I'm going to let you guys sit on your hands and take your time and lowball me. And see, I think, and you correct me this if it's wrong, but I tend to think that the insurance companies think that a lot of people are just going to go, hey, cool, they sent me a check for $4,000. Hey, it's $4,000 that I didn't have, so I'm just going to accept that, and I'm just going to go on my merry way. Meanwhile, knowing in the back of your head that you've got $20,000 worth of damage, and so now what? So, you go ahead.
Yeah, you're so right, Kramer. Your listeners are so lucky to have you because you're exactly right. What happens is, by sending you some money, a lot of times people go, well, thank God, I got something. And they don't realize that maybe they're entitled to all of their money. Listen, you should make valid claims. You should be honest, and your listeners are honest. But the concept is that every dollar that you're entitled to, one of two things should happen. If I provide two estimates, let's say, from the general contractor that show it's going to cost me $20,000 to fix my property, or $200,000, whatever the number is, and I have pictures and documenting that, I would write the insurance company and I would say, dear insurance company, here are two separate estimates, so you can't say I'm just getting my friend to do it. Here's all the pictures and data. Here's all the documentation to support it. Please tell me when I'm going to get my check, or explain to me in writing which part of this estimate you find to be disconcerting, troubling, mistaken, inaccurate. Love and kisses you. And you'll be surprised at how powerful those things are.
I love when you say that. Scott Major, 844-800-LAWS, 844-800-LAWS. And you can also go to stormhelpteam.org. More with Scott and your phone calls coming up. Stand by.
The Kramer Show will be back in a sec on NewsTalk at 101. This hour of The Kramer Show is brought to you by Captain D's. D's Nuts.
Got him! Got him!
Here's Kramer on NewsTalk at 101.
That's not right. 7:33. We're back. Scott Major is on from the Major Paruas law firm and the Storm Help Team. You can get on the air, 850-233-9988, 850-233-9988. And to get in touch with Scott, 844-800-LAWS, 844-800-LAWS. So I've got him, and then let's go to Brad on line 13. Brad, you're up with Scott Major. Go ahead.
Thank you for taking my call. The issue we're having, just like everybody else, insurance issues, but also we're paying on the house, so our mortgage company has gotten the check, but they're not releasing funds for us to get people. Myself, I was a licensed contractor in California, so a homeowner can do the work, but they're telling me I can't do any work on my own home. I have to have a contractor, and trying to find a contractor up here in Fountain when you can do so many other houses in town, nobody's coming out to really give us bids, and when they say they do, they don't show up. So what about a mortgage company not releasing funds? What repercussions or what can I do to force them to give me funds to start work, even get things going?
Generally speaking, thanks for your question and thanks for the call-in. There is a common problem associated with mortgage companies holding money. Most of the reason why is a valid one in the sense that they don't want private people that aren't licensed fixing things that are likely not to be up to code. And so what they usually require is a valid estimate from a licensed contractor. And I understand that during these times it's a challenge to get contractors out there. My suggestion to you would be offline is to call the 844-800-LAWS number, and we'll get you in contact with a contractor who can get over to your property, that can maybe give you the estimate that you need so the insurance company, or in this case the mortgage company, can release the funds. It's just difficult because you really need to allow those things to happen. Now, there is some exceptions, and it depends on what your claim is. If your claim is not just for, say, fixing a roof, if your claim was like for contents also, or other things which are not required by a licensed contractor, then they would have to release the money, or they would have some problems on their own and could suffer some liability. But if you're just talking about the structural types of things, or things which would otherwise require a permit or a contractor to perform, it's very difficult to win in a court of law when the mortgage company is telling you we'll release the funds, but we need some sort of estimate. So if you're unsuccessful in finding somebody, dial our 844-800-LAWS offline and ask for me or anybody on the team and tell them, you're in Fountain and you need to get somebody over to your property promptly so that you can comply with the mortgage requirement, of having an estimate from a licensed or insured contractor. Does that make sense?
They're not even wanting an estimate. They're wanting a final, as in completion. Then they will release the funds. I've argued to them, how do I pay if I don't have funds to start the job?
So again, it depends. Some some mortgage provisions actually say the borrower shall keep the improvements now existing or erect the property, before payment. Most of them don't allow a mortgage company to refuse to pay or to make you front the money so long as you have a valid signed estimate. So as part of this process, if for some reason after you get a valid estimate you have some additional problems, call us and we'll make the courtesy phone call, help you with the mortgage company if that's necessary to do that. Or if they're going to be jerks about it, then we'll just take them out. We'll aggressively pursue it so that you will get your funds taken care of. Does that make sense?
Thank you so much. That makes sure.
Have a great day. Thanks for calling in. We really appreciate it.
Okay, thanks.
Yeah, Brad, make sure that you give them a call off the air, all right? 844-800-LAWS, 844-800-LAWS. I've seen that, where people are having having to wait a long time before they actually, and that's another thing too, and this may be, again, I have to apologize for asking you dumb questions, but I'm trying to learn too as we go. If you get, a company over to tarp your roof, and then time is up and the tarp is not doing its job anymore, is it up to the insurance company to pay to bring somebody else out there to tarp the roof again if it's been so long before? Because a lot of people are just on a list and they're saying, well, it's going to be this amount of weeks or months before I can get a roofing company out to actually work on my roof.
Another great question. The answer is that as long as you keep the insurance company notified in writing, as long as you say, for example, you have told me that this tarp's going to last 30 days, and by December 14th, I need to have a roof constructed or the tarp out. We do not have, any roofer who can come out before that time. Here's letters from 2 roofers saying they can finish my property on December 27th. We need you to make sure that that either a substitute tarp or other repairs are made or temporary monies are provided to me so that I can preserve the integrity of the roof. If not, other damages I will suffer will be, taxed to you. And as long as you're documenting these common sense things, what happens is most insurance companies will respond and will take care of the problem. And if they don't, then that is something you're going to have to get somebody like our team or somebody involved to say, hey, you need to write the letter or we need to get involved now to make sure they expedite your payment or that they make sure that they help you to mitigate your damage until such time that you get the general contractor or roofer out there to finish it.
Now, what should the last line of the letter say? One more time, Scott.
Love and kisses you.
I think we should name your hour Love and Kisses. I think it's great. What a great tagline.
Awesome.
Scott Major from Major Paruas Law Firm and the Storm Help Team, 844-800-LAWS. And by the way, we have an open phone line so that you can get through and talk to him and ask your question live on the air, 850-233-9988. When it comes to just, in general, are you seeing a lot? Is it the roof, the main thing that kind of people get screwed over on from the insurance company, or is it just a mixed bag? Just depends.
Well, the answer is that the most common problems in terms of underpayments are associated with the roof and the subsequent damage that occurs as a result of the roof damage. So you have a roof problem, and then water leaks in, and it destroys the furniture, and it ruins your TV and other types of things, gets into the walls, or ruins your carpet. And a lot of times the insurance company recognizes, well, geez, if I pay for the roof, I'm going to also have to pay for the interior stuff, and so they'll challenge what caused that roof problem. And you'll have a common kind of problem of, well, your roof's old, which, by the way, for every listener out there, the fact that a roof is old is not a defense when you have valid insurance. People don't understand that, insurance companies, when they insure you, they're insuring you based on their evaluation of that roof's condition. If they think there's a problem with the roof and they don't want to insure it, they can always choose not to insure it. But after the fact, they can't claim, well, your roof is 10 years old or 15 years old, and I know you insured it, but it's too old. And the only exception to that is when people in insurance get a certain kind of coverage called actual cash value coverage, which is different from what replacement cost value. And just for a moment, what that means is replacement cost value is you get repaired whatever it costs to replace it. An actual cash value, they depreciate the roof or the structure, based on that. But putting that aside, those are the most common problems of those things. When you have water inside, a lot of times the homeowner's insurance company will blame it on a flood, and so you have to demonstrate where the water came in. And those are the most common kinds of challenges. And you're right when you say that you get a lot of these partial payments and in order to satisfy people. And so you really need to stay true and strong in your follow-up with the insurance company to make sure you get the most money the fastest.
Scott Major from Major Paruas Law Firm, 844-800-LAWS, 844-800-LAWS. Matt, you're on the phone with Scott. Go ahead, my friend.
Hey, Kramer. Hey, Scott. Good morning.
Morning.
Hey, how you doing?
I'm all right. Hey, I've got two questions, one involving insurance, one involving the city. My first question involving insurance. I have homeowner's policy and a flood policy. I didn't take a whole lot of wind damage, but I did take a foot of water, a foot of rising water, not storm surge, but actual storm drainage water. My homeowner's policy is refusing to pay additional living expenses because the house suffered rising water. What can I do, if anything, about that?
Generally speaking, flood insurance deals with situations where water has come in, to the property from a source other than wind or rain. And generally, if you have if your lake overflows, if your toilet backs up, if things happen where water's coming in and there's a flood-related incident, oftentimes that will be a flood type of situation. And you're right, that flood is generally not going to cover, like a loss of use type of thing. It will cover your electrical and plumbing system and your air conditioning and your kitchen appliances and carpeting and window blinds and debris removal, water heater, things like that. But generally, you're limited and can't use your homeowners if the cause of your damage was truly water coming in from a flood or a flood-related event versus rain hitting the roof or getting into an opening and then sneaking in.
And that is correct. It's all the home is not livable because it's all flood damage. Not anything really coming from the top down. It's coming from the bottom up. Okay.
And unless you can find another way, unless the water entered through, for example, a window or something like that, or maybe there's more rainwater there, you're really going to be stuck with your flood insurance, which will cover some of things, just may not cover some things that you want.
Okay. Second question. My home is 2 feet below street level. It has flooded 3 times in the past 6 years. Okay. I have continued to talk to the city that I live in, and they've told me on multiple occasions there's nothing more they can do for the drainage system, the sewer drainage system, and that is what has caused this flooding constantly over the years. Is the ditches continue to back up. They're inadequate for the amount of rain that we get, and it goes straight into my house every time. I'm sorry, I apologize. Go ahead. No, you're fine. I was just going to say I've tried talking to city officials. I've tried talking to the mayor, and nobody is willing to help on this. And I don't know where to go. I'm even getting ready to contact a lawyer, but I don't even know what type of lawyer to contact.
Okay, let me tell you a couple things about that. A lot of homes were sort of grandfathered in where they were below the floodplain line. In other words, they were built, a long time ago and were below the sea level or below the typical recognized elevated level that you would want in order to protect against these kinds of things. And the city does have some responsibilities to ensure that they don't create known risks. But the problem is when you don't build an elevated home, you absorb some of that responsibility. Now, generally speaking, if, in fact, you have told them about the problems that you have, and the city knows that there's a genuine problem, and they're allowing your home to be at that level, they have to take steps to ensure that they've reasonably avoided the kinds of problems that you're facing. And generally speaking, if you have a lot of people, 2, 3, 10, 20, 50 people, 100 or 1,000 are affected, what you can do is you can gather those people up. I can either handle it or tell you who to go to, and you can file a class action if that's necessary that is a group action against the city to attempt to force them to take steps. But they're not generally required to do anything other than make sure that they, for example, don't have clogged drains and other types of problems. So you have to look at the cause of the backup, and if the cause is because you're below the floodplain level and they otherwise have cleaned the drains and things, and it's just because there's so much water, then it's more difficult to win the case than if they're just disregarding those kinds of problems and saying, oh, well, your house is below the level, so too bad. So it's very, very fact specific, and if you call us offline at the 844-800-LAWS number, we can certainly give you some intel on how to best evaluate whether in your circumstance it will be a problem or not, or whether or not you should be considering the advice of a lawyer or getting other people who are at this level. You'll find that in other states, like when I did all the post-Hurricane Sandy, stuff up in the Northeast, they ended up requiring people to rebuild at a higher floodplain level. In other words, they had to raise their homes 2, 3, 4, 5 feet in order to avoid in the future that happening. And I'll bet that they're going to require, with more city ordinances, they're going to require this, and I think it's going to be a shock to a lot of the residents who are trying to rebuild. But we'll help you every way we can, and call us, and if we can't help you, we'll try to get you to somebody who's intelligent and smart that can help you. But I have faced this situation and challenge before in other states.
Matt, awesome question. Scott with Fire brought it. There you go. Scott Major from Major Paruas Law Firm. 844-800-LAWS. And we got time for some more calls. 850-233-9988. We'll be right back.
More Kramer coming up. Oh, and if you're thinking of making a complaint call to management right now, don't bother. His dad owns the station. NewsTalk at 101. $7:52. It's the Kramer Show. It's NewsTalk at 101.
Jam-packed, informative hour for sure. Scott Major from Major Paruas Law Firm and the Storm Help team. His number is 844-800-LAWS, 844-800-LAWS. And he's here now to answer your questions and talk to you on the phone. Let me go to Joe in Panama City. Joe, you're up with Scott Major. Welcome.
Hey, welcome. Thanks for having me on. Scott, I have a question. I have several friends that keep asking or telling me that they've received checks from their insurance companies and they're not asked them to sign anything, but they're all so afraid to deposit the check or cash the check or do anything with it because they're thinking that's an admission of that's the final payment that they're going to get from their insurance company, and the check that they're getting is definitely not going to repair their house, but like a little bit, and pay for their temporary living expenses. What do people like that need to do when that happens?
Sure. Thanks for the call, and I appreciate it's a common question that comes up that I think is helpful. The important thing to remember is that when you cash these checks, they are not a release of any damages that you may have suffered that aren't reflected by the check. So in other words, if somebody pays you $4,000 on a $10,000 claim and they say this is for the barn, but we haven't given you money for the house or the driveway, then you take the money for the house, take the money that you get for the barn, and you can still recover for the other things. So the answer is you can deposit the checks. They are not settlements or releases of claims. In Florida, it's against public policy to force somebody to release a claim in this kind of scenario. So it's very important for you to understand that cashing of these checks does not constitute a release in almost every case. There are limited exceptions, but they generally don't apply here. One of the other things I want to tell you guys, because I think your question raises this along with the last question, is that a lot of people are concerned about getting vendors out there. I can't get my roofer out there, or the general contractor or roofer says, hey, I'd love to fix your house, but I need money. Well, I just want to let everybody know, all the listeners out there, that we can help vendors, general contractors, mold remediation companies, water removal companies, roofers, plumbers. They want to get paid more quickly, and if you can get them in touch with us, we can help to get to the insurance company their estimates and their documents in a way that also helps you get your money. So it's not just the residents or the business owners, but it's every vendor who's trying to get paid, would love to get paid sooner, and wants to get that money. They have just as much an interest in having the insurance company more expeditiously pay. So you can tell your roofer and your general contractor and other people who are fixing your property, hey, listen, you can call Major over there at 844-800-LAWS. He'll help expedite those payments, which benefit both of us. So it's not just for residents and business owners. It's also for vendors who might not be paid or not paid quick enough, who need to work together. We all need to work as a team here and work together in a family kind of environment to get you the money the quickest.
It almost exhausts me just to think about, all the things you got to deal with now. I mean, people just want to get back to their lives. People just want to go back to work. They want to take their kids to school. They want to go home. They want to cook dinner. They want to live their lives and pay off their debt. But now, with this coming through, there's a million different things, a lot of moving parts. So, if you think that it's overwhelming, maybe it's time to give Scott and his crew a call. 844-800-LAWS, 844-800-LAWS. And we're coming up on time. I was going to ask you, we'll have to save it for next time, but I was going to ask you about all these, you have all these contracts that people want you to sign. You got to sign a contract for the roofer. You got to sign a contract with maybe a tree service, whatever. And sometimes those contracts release the insurance funds to those people. So there are some things and I'm learning on that end that you have to look out for too. So,
yes. Yeah, we'll definitely talk about that, Kramer. Good points. We'll talk about that on on our Tuesday show, or if people call us on that, we'll definitely fill that in, because I think that's a really important point, and I'll give you some great tips about what you should have in those contracts.
Yeah, I'm going to write that down. Let's start off the next show with that. By the way, the website, too, so you know you have the phone number and you have the website. Website is stormhelpteam.org. Stormhelpteam.org, 844-800-LAWS. And they also have a thing where you can actually meet Mayor Brudnicki and Scott Major and some other people that's coming up very, very soon as well.
Yeah, and Kramer, let me just say one quick thing at the end. I want to thank you personally for really educating the listeners and stuff. It's really important, and you've done an unbelievable job talking about this and sharing the frustration and making people feel more empowered about that. And having done this for decades, I can tell you you're one of the best there is. So I just want the listeners to really understand that what you're doing is a great service.
Very, very nice of you to say, man. Have a great rest of your day, Scott. I'll talk with you soon.
Be well.
All right, bye-bye.